Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I have any apologies for attendance, please? Absent, sorry.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have apologies from Councillor Pam Cameron, Councillor Giles Davis, Kelvin Harnett, Mike Jeremiah and Keith James.
Councillor Seaborn.
If I could give apologies for Councillor Len Constance, please.
Councillor Raymond Mills.
Okay, thank you, members. The attendance register is going round again, so can you please sign it? And is there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd circulated, following the circulation of the agenda yesterday, and I appreciate it was only yesterday afternoon, an advice note to members regarding declarations. Now, in the event that perhaps not all members have had an opportunity to have a look at their inbox, I think I should repeat the advice given here so that we can capture any interest that need to be declared. Firstly, in relation to Portnewydd Primary School, any members who are local authority appointed governors of the school will have a personal interest only, and I've been made aware that Councillor Barry Taylor has a personal interest as a local authority appointed governor, so if Councillor Taylor could confirm that.
That is correct.
Thank you. Members who are not local authority appointed governors could have a personal and prejudicial interest unless they've been granted a dispensation by the Ethics and Standards Committee. Members will also have a personal prejudicial interest unless granted a dispensation if either they are living with somebody who is a governor of the school, and that's not a governor of the school, or have a close personal association with someone who is a governor of the school, or are living with somebody attending the school, for example, as a pupil or employee, or have a close personal association with someone attending the school. So I don't know if members have any interest in relation to that, firstly. No. Thank you. In relation to Pennegarn Primary School, this will be a personal interest only if members are council-appointed governors or otherwise, or living with somebody who is a governor of the school or of a close personal association with the governor, or living with somebody attending the school, for example, a pupil or an employee, of a close personal association with someone attending the school. I don't know whether members have any interest on this. No. I'm not aware of any others. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Members, are there any other interests that you know of? No? Okay, we're going to move on to item agenda 4 of the agenda, minutes of Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee, 29th of January. Can somebody move them, please? Seconded? Thank you. Okay, members, we are here because there's been a challenge to the Cabinet decision made on the 15th of July. The agenda and relevant papers have been circulated. Can I remind you all of the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee of your powers, which are also circulated and can be seen on page 21 of the agenda? Councillor Harris, would you like to present your challenge, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to put this objection on record and into the public domain. At last week's Cabinet meeting, they made the decision to close Portnewydd Primary School on the 31st of August 2015, a school rated excellent by Estyn and one of the highest performing schools in Wales, not in the borough, in Wales. The decision to close the school was based on two main issues. One, the reduction of school places, and two, a cost-saving measure for the public purse. During the past few weeks, I have emailed my concerns to senior officers within TCBC, requesting clarification on a number of issues. The information I have received in reply clearly shows that when Cabinet made their decision to close the school, they were not in possession of the full facts, and there were inaccuracies in the documentation they were supplied with at the time. I also am very concerned that a senior officer claimed at the meeting that there had not been no formal objection received from the school governors, and this was not disputed by any Cabinet member at the meeting. I have a copy of that objection from the school governors, and I'm assured that this was submitted to Cabinet for consideration. This is a serious omission in a decision-making process. The reduction of school places. On the first issue, as part of the consultation process, the local authority released the projected figures for all schools in the local area for the next 4 years. This has been a major issue with the school, as the figures below show that if Pontywenny does close, then there will be a deficit number of places in the area when looking at capacity figures. This has been highlighted as an issue from the outset, via school governors, staff members, parents, through the many objection letters, and I believe there's been around about 149 objection letters in total. However, the facts have been ignored by the local authority and the figures have never been addressed in any form. The Deputy Leader raised this issue at the last Cabinet meeting, but his plea seemed to fall on deaf ears. I've got 2 tables, which I'm not going to read out exactly what's on those tables, and based on current numbers in schools and current parental preference trends, projected numbers on the roll, I will briefly summarise. And the top table, you will note that at the same time as the school is planned to close in September 15, or 2015, you've got a total of 366 pupils in Pennygarn and 129 in Pontywenny, and the total of the 2 schools equals 495. At the same time, you will see that the capacity for Pennygarn is 475. Therefore, there's going to be a deficit of 20 places in one school. The numbers in the tables exclude nursery and those attending special needs, but I need clarification from officers to ascertain whether or not the figures in my table exclude the council estimates that about 33 primary-aged children will be generated by Pennygarn Heights development, which is 124 dwellings. As and when the building starts, any anticipated pupils should be added to the 5-yearly projections. There is a third note that I've thought of at this meeting, which is that the borough is going to house all the travellers, the whole allocation from Welsh Government into Cwmnisgoy, and that's going to exacerbate the problem, no doubt. If you look at the figures, the total capacity for the schools in September 2015 will be 1,650, following the closures of both Pontywenny and Pontymoyle Junior Schools. In September 2015, there are currently projected to be 1,577 pupils in these schools, and this provides a surplus of 73 pupils in the whole area. However, the 129 pupils from Pontywenny are not included in these figures which were produced by TCBC, and when you add the 129 pupils from Pontywenny, there is actually a net deficit of 56 places. This gets worse in 2016, where the projected figures are 1,629. This is only 21 places below the overall capacity of 1,650 and does not include the 124 pupils from Pontywenny Primary School. In 2016, when you add the additional 124 pupils from Pontywenny, this will mean a deficit of 103 places, 103 children without a school. By closing the school, the Cabinet have agreed on a policy that will not provide enough places for pupils projected to live in the area. This does not include any future housing developments, as far as I'm aware at this point, or changes to population demographics that may occur to the area in the future. This has been challenged on numerous occasions by the school, but has not been answered in any form by the officers of the local authority. By closing the school, the local authority is placing the area into immediate deficit in terms of places required for pupils. Members need to be mindful that the local authority will be breaking the law if there is a deficit. Some schools are already up to capacity. George Street, for instance. A cost-saving measure for the public purse is the second issue on which the Cabinet based their decision. and it's estimated at an annual saving of £162,000. Page 5 of the TCBC consultation document stated in regard of Pontnewydd that approximately £746,000 is needed in terms of backlog maintenance just to bring the school back to its as-built condition before any investment or improvements are made in the school to support a curriculum that is fit for the 21st century. The full report this figure was based on was written in 2009, and from the same report it is stated that Pennygan School requires an even higher level of investment in excess of £764,000. Despite being raised by Pontnewydd School's governing body, in its responses to the consultation and part of its formal objection to the proposal, this information has not been made available as part of the consultation proposal. This would be before any 21st century schools remodelling and transition costs at Pennygan School, and would bring into question the estimated annual saving of £162,000. TCB states in the updated consultation document published in March 2014, no detailed breakdown of this £162,000 has ever been provided. However, one of the 4 savings areas is anticipated to be buildings and ground maintenance. A further savings area identified in the same report is the current uplift salary of the deputy head teacher post at Pontnewydd. However, in the last academic term, Pennygan School increased its senior management team from a non-teaching head and deputy to a non-teaching head and 2 deputy head teachers. The deputy leader voiced his concerns at the cabinet meeting, stating, "There have been no plans, not even on the back of a fag packet." And we now learn, post-cabinet meeting, that the transition group will take care of the merger, the first time this has ever been mentioned. This is not, I repeat, not a criticism of the cabinet. The cabinet can only make a decision based on the information and facts that are available at the time. I formally request that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee note that this is a genuine and serious challenge to the Cabinet's decision. I further request that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee accept my objection against Cabinet's decision to close Pontnewydd School, and ask Cabinet to review the points and additional information I have provided in this objection, and ask for further information, including additional information on which the decision was based, background documentation and the reasons for the decision. And I propose the Council Overview and Scrutiny should require Cabinet to reconsider the decision, as I believe the decision was made without having full disclosure of the information available. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Are there any other members have any comments or questions? Councillor Barry Taylor.
Chair, thank you for allowing me to speak here today. I have voiced my opinions on no end of occasions with councillors regarding the closure of Pontnewydd School. Last night, when I heard that there was a challenge, I didn't expect it. I'm sorry, I don't always agree with opposition members, but I think that the challenge that Councillor Mike Harris has put in is truthful. Things have not been discussed fully with governors of the school. This is the second consultation that has taken place. The first one I thought was appalling. The second one, I can't describe how I feel about it, because the second consultation was only done on the Cabinet website, and it still remains the same. Now, if you were not into electronic and computers, to find the consultation paper on this can be very, very difficult. It wasn't headed tidy, and the consultation was not done. The school has turned around, the school, as has been said, is an excellent school. Last council meeting, they were, the mayor read out where the school went up to Coventry and had an excellent report, and we were congratulating this school because it is one of the best schools that we have got in Torfaen. I have argued that all the consultations have not been done correctly. Governors and the chair of governors have asked questions that have not been answered fully. I can also say now at this moment in time that the trade unions have never received copies of the consultation. Now, myself as a governor, on the first consultation, I was given a paper copy of the consultation. So, the Education Authority knows very well that I was on the consultee programme. On the second consultation, I have received absolutely nothing. I have spoken to my AM. She has also voiced opinions that the consultation was not done correctly. Following all this, we have put a challenge into the Child's Commissioner of Wales, and also, which we have got a reply from, and also to the Ombudsman. Now, on the commissioning paper, Keith Tower, the Commissioner, says, 8 children met with my team and were very vocal, open and articulate in their response to questions that my officers put to them. And when they were given them openly talk time. His last comment, my main issue of concern to the pupils was that no feedback on their input into the consultation process was obtained from them. I strongly encourage all
Councillor
authorities...
Taylor, sorry, you can't read any snippets of documentation which officers haven't seen. Just been informed.
Well, I'm
Can you
sorry.
just generalise the views?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I was just suggesting that either we have a break for the officers to see the documentation, in fact for all members to see the documentation, or you don't refer to it, but to read out selective extracts could be misleading to the Council. So I think my suggestion, Madam Mayor, was if Councillor Taylor wants everybody to see this, that we should have a quick break to photocopy the documents and everybody can have a look at them.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but this letter was sent to Mark Orton, Head of Forward Planning, Torfaen Borough Council. So they have had this letter.
I just repeat my advice to the Mayor, and it's the Mayor's decision, that I don't think members can make informed decisions on extracts being read out of a document that not everyone has seen. So I would suggest that if there is documentation, Councillor Taylor, that letter and any other that you want members to make decisions about on the basis of what's in them, that there should be a short break to photocopy those papers so everybody can have a look at them and make their own judgment on what's in it rather than on extracts.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, can we have 5 minutes then just to photocopy the documents so all members can see it, yeah? Okay, just adjourn it 5 minutes. Councillor Taylor, this is all the paperwork you've got now, there's nothing else. You haven't got any other letters to read it from? No, it's okay. Right, okay, would you like to continue that? Members had a chance to read the letters? Yeah, okay. Councillor Taylor, would you like to continue?
Can I say that I had this letter off the Chair of Governors, Matthew Davis, so that's where I received this letter. As you have all read it, I'll go on to what some of the children said. What would be happening to our teachers? Why are they repairing our school if we're going to pull it down? Another one there, the bats, are they protected? Going on down, the school has a very good Estin report. Pennygarn wasn't as good. The best in Torfaen. Don't know why they want to close the school. It's a flagship and has been redone with iPads, TV, studios, fit for 21st century learning. You know, this is off little children, you know, and like I say, I believe that the consultation has not been handled properly. I have asked questions. This school was earmarked for closure under the 21st century, and it was not expected to close until 2020, perhaps. I've asked, why was this brought forward? Who made these decisions? You know, the previous Director of Education, I have been told, Mark Provis, always didn't want this school to close as early, but it has been brought forward. So I will finish there, and thank you for allowing me to speak, and I will be supporting Councillor Harris on his objections.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Marshall?
Councillor Taylor have gone through the biggest part of it, so I'm not going to go through that again. But as a governor of the school, I'm a very, very proud bloke to be as a governor, one of the governors of the school. That school up there is run at first class. We had the mayor up there the year before last, Wayne Tomlinson, and he fetched the group back there, and he was absolutely pleased the way it was run, and the teaching staff up there, I'm sure he is. So, you know, it was all done too fast. Too fast for me, too fast for the governors. It could have been taken a lot more time and a lot more thought given into it. Because, like he said, Pennycarn School, to our opinion as a governor up there, is not a patch on that little school up there. Why are they fetched it so fast? There's bound to be something in their clogs to do such a thing. Because that school up there, it was run, the inspectors come there, they said how first class it was. They couldn't believe, they couldn't give it enough what it was doing, and the teaching staff in that school, they couldn't give it enough praise. So I shall be doing the same as Councillor Taylor, and I shall be voting with Mike Harris to asking the Cabinet to relook at that school.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Norby?
Thanks. First of all, can we deal with the letter from the Children's Commissioner, because I think we probably do need to understand that and perhaps consider whether or not it is significant to the decision we're being asked to take. I'm not, having been involved in some of the consultations, surprised by some of the comments made by the children. Indeed, there were similar comments which were reported to Cabinet when the proposals were initially considered by Cabinet. I had numerous letters, all of which were documented and part of the report to Cabinet. So, but they're not untypical of comments made by children when they are faced with the prospect of their school closing. That's the sort of thing that they go through, but teachers generally, normally, support them through that process in order to ensure that those worst fears that they express are not realised. if you read what the actual letter from the Children's Commissioner says, he doesn't tell us to do anything. What he does do is ask us to consider introducing pupil feedback into the consultation process. I think what he means by that is that having had feedback from the pupils, that there should be a further discussion with them about how that impacts on them and on the school and on the proposal, and that to be more specifically reported in the paper going to Cabinet. But as I say, the paper going to Cabinet already had access to the comments made by children. So I'm not arguing with what the Commissioner is asking us to do, but he's not telling us to do anything in respect of this particular proposal as it now stands. And of course, if he had written before the 17th of July, if he'd written in time, and he's, I'm assured, known about this proposal for some time because the school wrote to him some time ago with their concerns, then this paper could have been considered by Cabinet. But as I say, it doesn't introduce anything other than the suggestion I've referred to. It doesn't introduce anything additional to the sorts of comments that Cabinet know were made by children as part of the process, conducted by our own play service. And I accept that it's a good idea, because those children's expectations have been raised, that there should be an opportunity to talk to them about the way in which they were consulted to see if there are any lessons to be learned from that. But I don't accept that we are being advised to do anything in respect of the process that we're being asked to consider today. Councillor Harris's motion relies upon a few arguments, and certainly Councillor Taylor's comments and Councillor Marshall's comments rely upon this suggestion that Pontywenith School is an excellent school and that Penygarn isn't. Estin, we accept the Estin judgment in respect of Pontywenith, that it's an excellent school, but it seems that we don't accept the Estin judgment, which was that when this proposal goes forward, they see no evidence of deterioration in the standards of teaching and learning for those children. They've said it makes sense in both teaching and learning terms, as well as in terms of modernising the premises to give those children a better school facility and environment to live in. Not to live in, to be taught in. Sorry about that. The question of the 21st Century Schools programme, I think, we need to remind ourselves what that is about. That's about ensuring that children can attend a school where there will be inclusive provision for them, and will have modern facilities, and will be up to the standards we would expect to be provided for all our children. Pontywenith does not do that. However good the teachers are, however good the standards of teaching and learning, Pontywenith is not an inclusive school. By its very nature, it cannot be inclusive, because it's got stairs, it's got various levels. It is impossible for a child living in that catchment area who's in a wheelchair, for example, to attend that school. It is not serving the community in the way we envisaged schools serving the community when we agreed the 21st Century Schools programme back in 2010 and 11. So what we should judge it on is whether or not the provision being made for them in Pontywenith, in Penygarn, is as good as they are entitled to expect. And the Estin verdict is yes. And that's so we should be considering that. There's a bit of confusion also about the extent to which the figures, the money sums referred to in Councillor Harris's motion, what that means. What it means is that for Pontywenith, in order to bring it up to the standard that we would expect for our 21st century schools, we would need to spend £750,000. We are also going to have to spend, in relation to Penygarn, a sum which I think has been suggested £4 million in order to bring that up to the sorts of standards we expect. But in that case, it is possible to do so in an inclusive way, whereas within Pont Newydd it is much more difficult because of the nature and the fact we're talking about a building which is 100 years old. All of that was expected in the 21st Century Schools programme when that went through Council in 2011. This is not something new. The money is not going to be spent. The Welsh Government would not approve us spending £750,000 on Pont Newydd School on the basis that it is 100 years old and it is not accessible to all children. So that is pie in the sky, I think. But it's a bit of a red herring because the financial arguments don't really apply to the decisions that we're trying to take. In terms of the cost of running a school, where the £162,000 comes from, is really quite simple. It's the running costs of a school in relation to the fact it has to have a head teacher, it has to have premises, it has to have energy and so on. It has to have building and grounds maintenance, which was another thing that Councillor Harris referred to. All those are costed and they form part of the delegated budget to the school. When the school closes, those costs don't exist anymore once the school is closed, and that's where the saving comes from. Clearly then the formula will delegate an additional sum of money to Penygarn for the pupils it's got to teach. But that's taken into account in the way in which the LMS formula for schools is calculated. So it's a red herring again, that this is something that we're trying to confuse people on. It's not. The fact is also that Councillor Harris is selective in terms of the information he's provided on these bits of paper. He quotes in part from the report which went to Cabinet, but you see below the table there's notes 1 and 2. In fact, within the consultation report, within the report which went to Cabinet, there were 3 notes, one of which referred to projected forecasted numbers, and it says that these are based on current parental preference trends and therefore take into account both in and out catchment children. Also built into the projections are potential pupils generated as a result of new housing developments within the respective schools' catchment areas. So the comment that is made that it doesn't include the projected pupil numbers is at odds with what was reported to Cabinet and at odds with what I know to be fact from the projections that have been made. So it also, the table you've got, adds several rows relating to totals. They weren't in the consultation paper which went to Cabinet and which we've all had opportunity to see over the last 9 months, thereabouts. This latest version was March 14, but there was a version created for the initial consultation back in November last year. The totals purport to be, Mike Harris's totals purport to be the total of pupils within the area served by those schools plus Pont Newydd. But that's not the case, because probably about 25 to 30% of children in the Pontypool and Abersychan areas attend schools outside their catchment area. And there's about 47% of children in Cwmbran who attend schools outside their catchment area. Remember the figures in relation to Fairwater and Llantarnam about the movement, and that's what happens. So this does not represent the total of children who will be banging on the doors of those schools seeking a place in September 2015. There will be significantly less than that. I can't give you that figure, I don't have that, but it will not be that amount. But to suggest that officers would put forward a proposal to reduce places so that we didn't have opportunity to offer children a place in their catchment school is quite frankly a nonsense. They don't do that. They're professional people. What we've got is, remember again, 21st Century School programme. It's about removing surplus spaces, about getting rid of waste. And this is what is the whole framework about in terms of trying to meet the Welsh Government expectations and trying to manage the resource problems that we have. So you have to stop spending on buildings which are no longer fit for purpose and which could be replaced by other existing schools or by new schools, however you do it. Obviously, you've got to make sure that there are places for all pupils within your scheme, but the margin of surplus places has to be reduced. And frankly, we had surplus places in the region of 25 to 30% within Torfaen not so long ago, and the 21st Century programme was designed to make sure that that was reduced, and it is being reduced as we take this forward. The fact remains that you do not get new and improved schools without closing some schools, and although that's a difficulty and it's a concern, that's what we have to do if we're to achieve what we want, which is better, newer, shiny schools for our pupils. And that's the programme we agreed strategically on several occasions, and that's the one which I urge you to continue to support. So I'm moving an amendment to Councillor Harris's motion that we note the matter. Thank you. I should have said note the decision, not note the matter. Sorry about that.
Right. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Burnett, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Listening to the petition of Mike Harris and listening to Brian as well, and listening to Barry, we have to be transparent, and when it comes to consultations, and Barry's on the board of governors there, and he's not happy with it. As Mike Harris said in his petition, there's been a lot of misgivings there that the officers haven't done their job correctly. I will be supporting the petition so we can take it back to the Cabinet so they can look at it on a fairer basis. I'm just reading some of the things from the Charles Commissioner here when they're asking questions, and as Brian said, children will say anything when the schools are being closed to try and defend their schools. And sometimes we listen to children because children of this age are honest. And when asked the question, we were not allowed to go to the same cone, even if that's the answer we wanted to give. He moved us to a different game when we didn't give him the answers he wanted to hear. And just one more. When the man finished, he asked us what school we would like to go to, as he knew that Pennygan was full to overflowing. And children of 7 or 8 years of age, I mean, personally, I don't think they make that up. It's a question that's put to them, and they come up with, to me, a fair answer. So I will be moving with the petition to accept the petition. If we're going to go back to the Cabinet so that we can all see, and for the public of Torfaen, that we are transparent and we do give everybody a fair chance. And from Mike's petition and from Barry as a governor, he's not happy how the consultation went, and that's a governor. And I think we should be fair to all his children and take it back to Cabinet to make sure everything was done in the correct manner. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to go over an interpretation of statistics now, because I think that's been done very ably by all the speakers according to which particular point of view they're upholding. I do want to talk about people, though, and to put in context the whole 21st Century Schools programme. This is not a new thing. dreamt up by the latest cabinet of Torfaen County Borough Council. It goes back many years, certainly the time that I was executive member. And quite rightly, we were told then that if we wished to have large sums of capital spend on our schools, the 21st Century Programme would be the only pot to which we could apply. And I give credit to our officers, many of whom are sitting in front of you now, that they have spent thousands of hours working on the 21st Century School Programme, not only with costings and plans, but collection of data, etc. Then consulting with professionals, with head teachers, with with governors, the school budget forum, absolutely every area you can think of, before finally going out to consultation about that. I've still got somewhere, probably in an asbestos-covered file, a letter from Leighton Andrews, headed Dear Mary. I hated getting letters like that, which was putting in no uncertain terms the fact that we had to cut our primary school and secondary school surplus places. And I will remind members, or perhaps inform members who weren't on the council at the time, that we were criticised in our Estin report. One of the reasons we went into special measures was that we had not reduced quickly enough surplus school places. They admitted that we had the plans and they were happy with the plans, but they hadn't been signed off by the minister, so we hadn't actually cut the places. We've been criticised by the Welsh Audit Office for not doing the same. I can understand and really appreciate the feelings of those members who have now come forward to say they're not happy with the closure of the school. The first school we closed in Torfaen was in my ward. That was comparatively painless because it was at the request of governors. But I also taught in a school that was closed under Gwent County Council, so I do know the feelings of staff, pupils. We also, of course, have shut other primary schools. Park Terrace was one of the first we shut, and some of the members who weren't on the council there might not realise that, like the school we're talking about, didn't have a blade of grass. In fact, its playground was on the roof. That's not exactly a desirable sort of building for 21st century education. More lately, we've of course shut Hollybush and Brookfield, and once again it's a tribute to the governors for trying to keep those schools open. But it was very reassuring that when both those schools closed and we built Nant Celyn out of new money, staff and those who had led the protest actually went public and said the council was right, what we've got now is absolutely superb. And can I be reassuring all members here that I believe our officers are always meticulous in presenting the data, the statistics, the evidence and the contra-evidence. With the 21st century exhibitions that we had, we went right down the borough, evening after evening, with an open exhibition to which everyone was welcome, apart from in-house consultations. It's not easy to close a school. As I said, I worked in a school that was closed, but I think as a council, the local authority education department has a very proud record of making that transition process as painless as possible and ultimately to the benefit of all our children and the staff. I don't blame anyone for standing up and asking that, the decision be reconsidered. It wouldn't be, very nice to think that we had governors or councillors who weren't anxious to speak out for their communities. But I would say that we have to look after the wider community, which is all of Torfaen, because at the end of the day, if we don't close some of these schools, we will have to look elsewhere to cut surplus school places. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree with some of the sentiments that Brian and Mary has endorsed this afternoon. I mean, we all want the best facilities for our school children that we can get. But I do feel very uncomfortable with the way this consultation has been carried out, and I will be supporting Councillor Mike Harris's challenge.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've found this a very interesting meeting because pretty much everybody who's spoken has said useful, informative things that have helped me to help sort of guide my thinking on this. Let me just start with a point of principle. Sometimes schools have to be closed because they're not viable, for whatever reason. That's just how the world is. The school I went to, the junior school I went to, that was closed back in Gwent County Council days. This thing happens. So I do not, in principle, object to the fact that sometimes schools have to be closed. What has come out at me from this meeting and the comments that have been made on all sides is that in order to make what is always a difficult decision, and for the individuals, the teachers, the pupils involved, a very emotional decision, the process has to be absolutely meticulous. So the concern that's been raised in my mind to a sufficient level that I'm minded to support Councillor Harris is that I don't get a warm feeling that every last I is dotted and T is crossed. I do not get a feeling from what's been said and what I've read here that this is absolutely rock solid. Do you know what? It might actually be the right decision to close this school, but I want to feel that the process is beyond reproach and that no criticisms can be made. The reason that Councillor Harris is standing up bringing this motion today is because he's obviously found sufficient grounds for disquiet that's made him want to do this. So I would much rather that Cabinet invests a little bit more time and effort in reconsidering this decision, so that all of us, Councillor Harris included, can be content that there can be no grounds for, if it is reiterated, there can be no grounds, no concern that it is a wrong decision. So I'm minded to support Councillor Harris on this occasion on the basis of process, because I think that's appropriate.
Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of comments. Firstly, in relation to some of the members' comments. Thank you, Councillor Morby, for summing up the Children's Commissioner for Wales. That is your opinion. Mine is that I think is quite damning that a whole school felt it necessary to go there. So we'll differ on that. You also said that some of the children's comments, the teacher supports the children in this process. I don't know what you mean by that or what you're insinuating, but I just wanted to point that out. One member also said that the challenge relies upon the fact that Pontywennydd is a good school and Pennygarn isn't. That clearly isn't said anywhere in this challenge. Nobody has said that, and that's quite inaccurate. To ensure the kids can attend a school that is inclusive, even though the school will be overcrowded practically from year one, that's not inclusive. That's almost excluding people. One of the children in this report say that one classroom has to be walked through to get to another classroom, another 5 classrooms. That's not inclusive. That's not appropriate. How we envisage schools, but we didn't envisage that it was going to be overcrowded. That's not part of the 21st century school, and it's something that we've not considered. One councillor said that it didn't include projected children from new homes. But that doesn't detract from the fact that there will be a deficit for almost the entire first 5 years, and that will increase as housing provision that the Welsh Government expect us to do over a local development plan period. I think Councillor Barnett thanked the officers for all of the consultations and the work that they've done. And yes, the officers and councillors and staff of this authority do an exceptional job. But when you have a whole host of governors, a number of councillors, and a lot of children that feel so strongly that they go to the Children's Commissioner for Wales, they feel that the consultation was so flawed, that is damning in itself. I'm sorry. And the last thing I would like to say is that opposition don't challenge for the sake of challenge. We are not in here every month challenging anything and everything just to play the political game. So I really request that members in this room take this challenge seriously, because it is a serious challenge. And, you know, please consider that when you vote.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring Dermot McChrystal, Interim Head of Educational Services, in now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of points that have been raised, and I'd like to go through the objection, the actual paper itself, and pick up the main points there first, and then try and pick up the other points that have been raised in the chamber. I think there were 4 points in the paper itself. Obviously, the reduction of school places and the numbers around that, and I'll ask colleagues to come in on that shortly. A cost-saving measure, the whole the issue of funding, which I know has been picked up on, but again, I'll ask Mark and John to come in on that. We'll also, within that response, also pick up the issue about the deputy head in Pennygarn, which we'll see as a separate issue, but we'll try and explain why that is the case. And I'm just going to start with the issue about the no formal objection from the governing body, because I think that refers to me and something I said in Cabinet. When I was talking in Cabinet about having no formal objection, we were clearly talking about Pennygarn at the time. And I can confirm again that there's been no formal objection from Pennygarn governing body received. So I think the point that's raised in the objection here doesn't relate to Pont Newydd. We've obviously already published that objection and our response to it within the objection paper. So I think that's probably where that confusion came in. But I'm absolutely clear, and looking to officers, that we've still not received, as of this morning, any objection from the Pennygarn governing body. At that point, I'll just ask John to come in on the reduction of school places.
Yeah. Thank you, Dermot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the crux of this particular point is on page 3 of the challenge document, and the final paragraph, which refers to, by closing the school, the local authority is placing the area into immediate deficit in terms of places required for pupils. Members need to be mindful that the local authority will be breaking the law if there is a deficit. Just want to assure you that we will not be going into an immediate deficit in terms of the proposal for Pont Newydd and Pennygarn. And the reason for that goes back to something that Councillor Morby talked about just earlier, but I hopefully can give you the assurances by referring to the document again. The table reproduced in the challenge paper did omit a rather important footnote, the one about those figures including out-of-catchment pupils. It's a consequence, unfortunately, of taking schools out of circulation, which is at the moment, and for the last 12 months or so, probably the mainstay of our 21st century schools work programme, that you are going to limit parental choice. We've made no bones about that in the conversations that we've had in the very many places where we've spoken to professionals, we've spoken to parents, and we've spoken to other interested parties. You will start to limit the amount of choice. That will ultimately mean that some parents will not get the choice of school that they could previously have relied upon. And that's where the assurances really need to be given that because proximity is one of the issues that we have to consider when looking at admissions, we will not have problems at Pennygarn. Mark will talk, perhaps in just a little bit more detail, about the amount of surplus places we've got, because at the heart of that statement about are we able to meet our legal duty are 2 or 3 really critical figures about the amount of wastage we've currently got in the education system with seats that are not occupied by learners. Mark, do you want to just pick up on that particular point?
Yeah, at the moment we've got somewhere in the region of 1,800 primary school surplus places. That figure will reduce at the end of this academic session with the closure of Kemisfair Infants and Pont Newydd Primary. But that still does remain a high percentage of the 15% mark, something like that. In terms of places, it has been alluded to already, but overall, because of the surplus places, 42% of children within Torfaen go to out-of-catchment schools. They're not going to their local school. That's overall. Locally, in the north, that figure is less. it's just under 30%. And then within the individual clusters, Westmont cluster of primary is 38% and 17% in the Aberystwyth cluster of children don't go to their local school. That's because there's so many surplus places. And what we're trying to do as an authority, we've looked at this strategically, and it has been mentioned, yes, there will be sort of choice, preference will be removed at a local level, but parents will have an opportunity to send their children to their local school. What that will mean is that those children, perhaps for whatever reason, parents send their children out of catchment, further away, the admission criteria will be applied, and they will probably won't get places ahead of the local children. They then will be looking to go to their local school, and as a result of that, it will be pushing surplus places down across the borough, and getting back to one of our key priorities, which is to have local schools, right schools in the right place.
Madam Mayor, I don't propose to go into any more detail in that unless there are specific questions.
Do any other members want to come in now? No? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry. I don't want to question the education people, but, you know, school closures are not easy. They are difficult. I realise that. And I realise that there are emotions. Now, today, if the council turn round and says the school will close, we can't go to the Minister in the Assembly for an appeal. It is this council that is making the final decisions. You know, in the first consultation, I think there was an invitation for the Cabinet to go to the school and look at the school and talk to the teachers. You know, that's all I am asking is, you know, before the Cabinet makes this final decision, that they go to the school. Let the parents and everybody see that the decisions that are being made are open and transparent. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if we move on to the second point that was in the objection around the cost-saving measure for the public purse, again, John will just answer that.
Again, some of these issues have been picked up in what's been said before, so I won't make this any longer than it needs to be. The state of our building stock, our school building stock in Torfaen is very poor in many respects. This programme is about changing that situation, changing it as quickly as we possibly can, making difficult decisions along the way to do that. And I agree with all of the comments that have been made about how this process is unpleasant, it's unpalatable for some, and it's quite often emotionally charged. There is no question in my mind, based on the professional advice that we've had, that Pennygarn is a more suitable school to carry out remodelling works to prepare it for the 21st century schools agenda. And that's not a criticism of Pontywenith or any other school. It's a statement of fact based on the sort of buildings that they consist of. This isn't just about the maintenance backlog, because, as has been pointed out, the maintenance backlog across the two schools actually is relatively similar. Where you start to see escalating costs is when you try to bring a building that is extremely old and difficult to remodel up to the same standard as one that is easier to remodel. So we see the issues, but Pennygarn is a better school for taking forward, based on the evidence that we've had, and that evidence isn't just from this council, from this council's officers, but also from consultants that were employed by Welsh Government. There are some comments in the challenge paper about revenue costs, and revenue savings. And as I'm sure all of you are fully aware, the savings that we achieve on revenue spend when we close a school contribute towards the prudential borrowing that we need for the fund that funds 21st century school development. So, we have to get the money from somewhere, and that's one of the places that it comes. There was, in the consultation document, some detail about where the £162,000 revenue saving that we talk about came from. We've got a list that breaks it right down to elements of £500 if that's needed, but I think the principle is that they are, as previously stated, I think by somebody in the chamber, those day-to-day costs that we will simply not have to pay because the school would not be there anymore. The issue of Pennygarn and their staffing arrangements, Dermot, do you want to pick up that particular one?
I mean, obviously that's quite a separate issue. Pennygarn has its own budget that's based on the number of pupils who attend. So the fact that Pennygarn's changed its staffing structure recently is in response to their own needs, and that fits within the budget that they already have available. The budget from Pontywen, there's no impact on that. That's a response to their own needs and is within their own budget. So, Madam Mayor, again, if there's any questions on that specific issue, we'll pause there before coming back to the consultation issues that have been raised.
Anybody want to come in now at the moment? Councillor Bevan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I say I'm relatively newly elected. I've been in post now about 2 years and 3 months, and some of the things that come out in some of these meetings are frankly quite disturbing. To say that we've got 2 schools, both of which require over £750,000 on them to bring them up to spec, is quite frankly appalling. And I'm thinking, well, how on earth has this situation been allowed to develop over the years, where we've got a backlog of 25 million on the roads as well. It's only the last couple of years that we've entered the times of austerity and funding cuts to local government, and the cost saving is apparent of the 160 odd thousand for the running costs, but it's also the if I sometimes feel that we are sort of provided data to make us come to the decision to arrive at the desired outcome. And I do echo what my colleague, Councillor Graham Smith, had said, that we're almost in this case, it's almost like a jury. And I feel that we're being asked to eliminate any sort of possible doubt, if you like, surrounding the process. And I do feel that in light of the presentations that have been made by other councillors, there have been a few questions. We haven't left no stone unturned. I think there's some valid points being made, and on that basis alone, I would be supporting the motion to go back and have it revisited for the sake of completeness, really. I feel that if we are making this difficult decision to close a school, and it's always going to be a difficult decision and emotive, it does affect a lot of families in the community, parental choice, where they'll have less in terms of where they can send their children to their preferred school or not, especially to close a school that's receiving excellent performances from Estin at a time when we're in special measures as well. I accept Councillor Morby's points that there are limitations to the physicality of the building in terms of its scope to accommodate disabled children and what we want to have going forwards. But I just feel that we need to, be completely thorough in the process and ensure that every single fact has been taken into consideration before arriving at the conclusion that's been made. And I think there are a couple of questions that have been raised where it should perhaps go back and be revisited. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else? Councillor Thomas?
Can we just have clarification on the comment that was made about children walking through a classroom to another classroom? And could you just give some indications of how we're going to cater for the influx of children with the school dining facilities, please?
In terms of walking through classrooms, a number of our schools have got that position, but I couldn't talk specifics in this case. I'm not sure which school they were talking about, and so I'd need to understand that. But what we do when we start to look at remodelling schools is obviously deal with those often legacy issues that you've got from buildings that were built a number of years ago. So I can't give you specifics on what that situation is and will it be resolved. The vast majority of the work that we believe as officers that is going to be required in Pennygarden, again, was detailed in the consultation document. But you know, we have to get to the point of a decision before we start to spend the money on the surveys, which will confirm precisely what we're going to do. But if you're aware of the structure and the layout of that school at the moment, the wing off to your right as you face the main entrance is the area that's going to need the most attention. But there are some other parts of the building that will as well. With specific regard to the canteen, this has been raised a number of times about the ability of the dining hall to cater for not just what the numbers that we expect to go in there should this decision go ahead, but current numbers. We've provided information before from something called Building Bulletin Guidance, which demonstrates that actually that hall is physically big enough to cater for far more than the capacity of the building, even when more children go to it. And we know from discussions with the head teacher at the school that the issues that they had were logistical ones about the movements of children, and I understand as recently as a couple of weeks ago the changes that have been put in place have already resolved the problems that they were having. So we don't anticipate any problems in terms of the physical capacity of the dining hall, and the catering team are confident that their equipment that they've got in the kitchens is more than adequate to deal with the increased numbers of the children that would pass through there on an average lunchtime.
Councillor Thomas, do you want to come back in?
Back to the point about walking through the classrooms to other classrooms, it was a point the children made to the Children's Commissioner. So where did they get that comment from? Is it happening in Pontnewydd now, or do they feel it's likely to happen when they go to Pennygarden?
That's why I say I don't know which school they're talking about in that comment. But it wouldn't surprise me if in both schools there are instances. But I couldn't confess to know that that's exactly the case.
Can I bring Councillor Haynes in, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it was the visit, the school visit for the Children's Commissioner for Wales. My understanding is that in Pennygarden School, a classroom will be used. It's a central hallway type room with classrooms branching off it that will be used as a classroom with other children having to walk through it to get to their classrooms. I'm also a little bit worried that information isn't already noted or planned for councillors to make a decision on the school closure, because I think that's very important. And the children have picked that up in this document. You've all now had a copy. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I was aware of that, but it's been backed up in this document. So thank you.
Dermot, do you want to come in on that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add to that discussion, we know, as John said, that there are a number of our schools who've got that situation where the design of the building that was seen as fit for purpose when it was first erected is no longer fitting with how we want to teach our children. So another example, just to give you some reassurance, would be the Newcombrand High School on the Fairwater site, where we know we've got a number of instances there of really poor layout, where you have to access one learning space by going through another one. So what we're already doing around the preliminary drawings there, as we look to remodel the internal aspects of the building, is to eradicate that. So that will be one of the things that we look at. If there are any layout difficulties in Pennygarden, that's the discussion that we're already having with the head teacher in the new school, and we'll take account of that and any concerns that are raised as those discussions continue.
Councillor Haynes, do you want to come back in on
Yes,
that?
please. Just really, this is the 21st Century Schools programme, and we are going to be moving children from a school that is one of the highest performing in Wales into another school and allowing them to be taught in a classroom where other children have to walk through to access their classrooms. That's not 21st century schools. I'm sorry, but I was under the impression that education is about the actual education of the children, not about the buildings they are in. And we are hearing a lot about 21st century schools and Pontywenyd not being fit for purpose. But to expect children to be taught in a through room, that's not 21st century school. I'd like to see a plan of the classrooms of Pennygarn. I'd like to see a plan of Pennygarn. The Cabinet's decision should have been based on those facts as well, and they obviously haven't.
Councillor Morby?
Thanks. Just dealing with that particular issue and a couple of other issues which Councillor Haynes referred to earlier. What I think has been said by the officers is that action is going to be taken to ensure that pupils don't have to walk through one classroom to get to another prior to the implementation of the proposal in September 15. That was one of the issues that persuaded me, as the executive member at the time, to recommend to Cabinet that the proposal not be implemented in September 14, but in September 15, to make sure we had time to address those issues. And I'm quite sure that will be addressed as the Interim Director of Education, or whatever your title is, Dermot, sorry, has already intimated. You asked me, Councillor Haynes, or you asked generally, about what I thought about, what I meant by the comment that children are supported by their teachers when schools close. Simply that when schools close, teachers support those children to adjust to the changed circumstances of going from one school to another. And I have every confidence that the Pontywenyd teachers will be able to support the pupils from Pontywenyd in the move to whichever school they go to in future. So that's simply what I meant. With regard to the comment also about children going to the Commissioner, let's be realistic here. The children did not decide to go to the Commissioner. That was a decision taken by the governing body. Now, certainly the children have been involved, but to suggest that children of 7 or 8 decided, yes, we're going to go to the Children's Commissioner, is just fanciful and nonsensical. Pennygarn, you have said also, will be overcrowded. It won't. You've had assurances from officers that it won't be overcrowded. And I have confidence that because we are looking at, or they are looking at, the ways in which the building needs to be reconfigured, that will address those issues before the pupils actually transfer, in whatever numbers they transfer, to Pennygarn. That's an issue which also needs to be considered, how many of those pupils will be transferring, and that's not a matter you can progress until such time as the choice has to be made by parents. You also said that I sort of made reference to the Estin view of Pontywenyd and Pennygarn in relation to Councillor Harris's arguments, his paper which he's presented. Fact is, I wasn't. I was referring to what Councillor John Marshall said about the standard of teaching and learning in the schools, and I'm making the point, which I reiterate, that Estin have no concerns that the standard of education within Pennygarn will be any less than that which is enjoyed by the pupils in Pontywenyd. So, on that score, which ought to be the main factor, how good is the teaching and learning going to be? Estin, in their judgment, have said that it's going to be as good. And I'm very pleased about that. That's one of the most positive factors about the programme, that you can actually be given that sort of assurance that it will, at the very least, preserve the standard of teaching and learning which is taking place, particularly when it's excellent. So that's good. I'm keen, I think, that we move to a situation where we're in a position to vote. I'm not trying to stop debate, far from it. And because I moved the amendment, I can't actually suggest a motion that the question now be put. But I suppose I'm saying this in the hint that somebody else might want to take that, make that move.
Dermot, do you want to come back in now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd just like to address the issue of the consultation and was it fit for purpose? All I'd like to offer the Chamber is an absolute reassurance that we take consultation with all stakeholders incredibly seriously. We clearly, in the initial consultation round, weren't happy with the process, and we went back out to consultation. So this has been an extended period of consultation. In terms of the responses that you've got from the 8 young people who went to see the Children's Commissioner, I would also point out, as members are aware, we had over 65 letters, I think, from children in the second consultation, and we also carried forward comments from the original one. Some of those were positive in terms of looking forward to having a new school, I should add, but clearly there were a lot of concerns. The purpose of consultation for us clearly is to listen and to hear what people's concerns are and try to respond to them, but we also recognise we won't make everyone happy in terms of those responses. I am quite concerned about the responses from the 8 young people here, as I know that the head of the play service, who doesn't sit within education, because obviously we want to have some separation, we wouldn't want anyone to think that we were in some way skewing the consultation process. So the play service, who previously have had some extremely positive feedback about the way in which they engage with children and young people, will share what's been raised here today and obviously take that up with the play service, and I'm sure they'll reflect on it. The only other thing I'd say about the Children's Commissioner's letter, is that I think it's helpful to have that response to say that it's not for the Children's Commissioner to make a judgment, other than to say it would be helpful if in future consultations we give some feedback to children at the end of the process, and we'll build that into our process from this point forward.
Madam Mayor, I move the question be put.
Okay, so amendment first. We vote on the amendment. Yeah, it'd be helpful to get Dallas to come in and just outline what we're going to be voting on.
Just clarify then, we've got an amendment to the motion, which I understand will be voted first, which I'll read out, that the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee note that... sorry. Can you hear me now? We've got an... Can you hear me now? Do you want me to repeat from the beginning? The amendment is that the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the decision that was made by Cabinet. That there'll be a vote on the amendment first, but I'll take this opportunity to clarify the original motion, which my understanding is that you are asking the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee to ask Cabinet to reconsider the decision, taking into account the information provided by Councillor Harris in his challenge, which he set out, which is dated yesterday. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Seaborn.
Madam Mayor, could I ask for a recorded vote, please, when it takes place?
Yeah. Okay. Carried. So,
Madam Mayor, can I just a point of order then, please? When the amendment was put, I didn't hear anybody second it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to vote. Sorry, can we have a vote on the recorded vote again? Who wants a recorded vote? Yeah, okay, thank you, that's fine. Go on.
When I call your name, members, could you please say whether you're for, against, or going to abstain from this motion? This is the amendment.
Absolutely sure everybody knows we're voting on the amendment, which is to note. And Ros will be asking you to say for, against, or abstain on the amendment. Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Barnett.
For.
Councillor Bevan.
Against.
Councillor Brooks. Councillor Burnett. Councillor Cameron is not here. Councillor Karen. Councillor Constance is not here. Councillor Crick. Councillor Cross. She's not here, okay. Councillor Giles Davis is not here. Councillor Nigel Davis. Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Furzer. Councillor Graham.
Abstain.
Councillor Harnett is not here. Councillor Harris. Councillor Haynes.
Against.
Councillor James is not here. Councillor Jeremiah is not here. Councillor Alan Jones. Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Marshall. Councillor Mason is not here. Councillor Morby. Councillor Mills is not here. Councillor Owen. Councillor Parish. Councillor Powell. Councillor Rees.
Abstain.
Councillor Seaborn. Councillor Smith. Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Waite. And that's it.
Okay, members, the results are 4, 15, 10 against. So now we have to vote on the amendment being a substantive motion. So with 2 abstentions as well, sorry.
Yeah, we still got opportunity, surely, Madam Mayor, for people to put other amendments, but I'm not recommending anybody does.
Can I insist, Madam Mayor, now that the amended motion is being carried, that becomes a substantive motion, and you're now required to vote on the substantive motion, which is that, again, that the Council Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the decision.
Can we call for a recorded vote, please? Can we call for a recorded vote?
That's enough.
Right, so members are now being asked to vote on the substantive motion, which is that this committee note the decision.
Right. Councillors, could you indicate whether you're for, against, or abstain again, please? Councillor Ashley. For. Councillor Barnett. For. Councillor Bevan.
Against.
Councillor Brooks. For. Councillor Burnett. Against. Councillor Cameron is not here. Councillor Karen. For. Councillor Crick. For. Councillor Cross. Councillor Nigel Davis. Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Furzer.
Abstain.
Councillor Harris, sorry. Councillor Haynes.
Against.
Councillor James. It's gone. Councillor Jeremiah. Councillor Alan Jones. Councillor Kemp. Councillor Marshall. Councillor Morby. Councillor Mills is not here. Councillor Owen. Councillor Parish. Councillor Powell. Councillor Rees.
Abstain.
Councillor Seaborn. Councillor Smith. Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Waite. Thank you.
Okay, members, that's the same. You have 15 for, 10 against and 2 abstentions. So, motion's carried. The motion to note is carried.
Let's get the agenda, yeah.
Okay, members, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Goodbye.